If you're sim racing on a single monitor like I am, you've probably had moments when you wished you could turn your head around through a corner or, simply check other cars near you in a battle. So during the last few days, I've tested what it's like to use a simple webcam as an eye tracker to shift the in-game view based on where I'm looking, just like you would in real life. So the big positives are pretty obvious. On those longer, heavily angled corners where the entry is out of view, being able to glance towards the apex makes a huge difference. It helped me being connected to the corner rather than guessing where the track goes, so I was a lot more consistent in those types of corners. And to give you some context, I raced in VR for about 2 years and I feel like I'm always driving faster when I'm able to tilt my head and look into the corner, so to speak. I'm using now a monitor because it's easier on the eyes and makes content creation much more straightforward. But what I found when testing the eye tracking software, which is called Be My Tracker by the way, I put a link in the description, was that I was able to beat my personal lap times in different cars mostly because of vision alone in a couple of those tricky corners. Going side by side is another situation where seeing more than just straight ahead really helps. On a single screen, we often leave too much space to the other car simply because we're unsure where the other car is, but with the ability to quickly glance to the other side, it stops being a guess. So I like that. But unfortunately, there are some drawbacks. When using head or eye tracking, you're not increasing the field of view. You're just shifting the limited visible area to another part of the screen. It's like sliding a small window left or right across a large panoramic image. You can choose what to look at, but you can't see more at once. From my experience, this has two big downsides. Number one is the loss of peripheral awareness because even with tracking, you can't maintain that wide awareness. When you turn the view left, you lose sight of what's on the right and vice versa. And second, a slight feel of missing the mark, so to speak. That's because I'm moving the view instead of seeing it all at once, like in VR or with triple monitors, and I feel like my brain has to constantly adjust. Plus, all these adjustments might come with a small delay. I've tinkered with the software settings, but no matter what I did, there was a slight delay when I was moving my view. Now, one of the factors was for sure my webcam placement. So, as you can see here, I have it on my monitor, but my eye level is a lot lower. For the best results, you want to minimize this angle and have it as straight as possible, but this was one of the limitations I was dealing with. The latency was quite noticeable and frustrating at times. I had to make sure I'm moving my head and eyes smoothly to minimize the effect, but it was there. I'm sure this can be reduced by having better lighting, a better webcam, more FPS, better positioning of the webcam, so even though my experience was not perfect, I'm sure there's a lot of potential to make it better. My main complaint is sim racing is that you need to be hyper precise. You're looking to the left or right side to see your braking marker, then you're looking at the apex. You do a lot of stuff with your vision and all those stuff happens in milliseconds, so being able to have zero latency is a big advantage, and if this technology will get to a point where zero latency can be achieved, I think it has some great potential. Now, would I recommend an eye head tracking software for sim racing though? It depends. Like I said, if you're on a single monitor and looking for a low-cost way to improve the situational awareness without jumping into VR or triple screens, it can absolutely offer some value, especially in cornering and side-by-side racing. But you'll need to be ready to experiment with camera placement, lighting, settings, because you want to make it work well. For competitive or longer races, the small delays and the lack of peripheral stability might still be a deal breaker. So in the end, I'd say it's a fun tool to try, but not a full replacement for proper field of view, or at least not yet. I want to thank the Be My team for giving me a license to test their software. It was great to explore what's possible with just a basic webcam and some clever tracking. While my setup had its challenges, the core idea behind the Be My is solid, and with the right conditions, I can see it being genuinely useful for some sim racers. I'm hoping they keep developing it further because, with a bit more refinement, this kind of tech could become a really practical alternative for those of us not using VR or triple screens. So thanks for watching, I hope you find it useful, and I'm looking to see you in the next one. Bye bye.